It's been said before, something to the tune of the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And I've heard people say skateboarding is a cure for insanity because you can exercise your need to attempt the insane but come out with a different result. And I agree with that. Skateboarding can be a healthy activity for unhealthy minds. Thinking you can jam this thing into a curb and glide into your future, that is insane. It defies logic, physics, and the concept of sanity. Then attempting the stunt is also nuts. But if you make it, it cancels all that insanity out. Now, does that sound like insanity or does that sound like an experiment? In skateboarding, you have to learn to do the impossible wrong first. You have to learn the safest way to fail. When you fail, to make the trick first try. You have to expect failure and plan for it, but strive to succeed in the experiment. You learn how to fail the right way. So that in this repeated attempt to make the impossible possible and the insane sane, you do not take such a physical toll on your body that is so great you may not be able to attempt further. An experiment is a scientific procedure designed to test a hypothesis, investigate a phenomenon, or answer a specific research question. Can I jam my trucks into that curb and grind into my future? It involves carefully controlled manipulation of variables in order to observe the effects or outcomes. Skateboarding in and of itself is a testable prediction or statement about the relationship between variables based on existing knowledge or theory. Just looking at a skateboard, I feel its possibilities in a primal part of my brain, like one of my ancestors had been doing ancient heel flips and getting kicked out for skating in front of the Roman Colosseum. Thou must go from here with thine rollerboards. Why thou art tripping, thine honor? There are no gladiators on the day of the moon. It is an order from the emperor that there are no rollerboards on Colosseum property. You must go or suffer thine sword. Skateboards can be manipulated, measured, or observed in the experiment. The independent variable is manipulated by the researcher, while the dependent variable is measured to assess its response to changes in the independent variable. Skateboarders as a group and/or individual in the experiment are treated identically to the experiment group, except for the manipulation of the independent variable. It provides a baseline for comparison to assess the effects of the independent variable. This irrefutable truth is known as Kook Law, or the unwritten rules of the skateboarding underworld. We are all judged by the same unit of measure, not grams or inches or millimeter. We gauge this experiment in units of stoke. As a skateboarder, you participate in the experiment that receives the treatment or manipulation of the independent variable, all the while engaging in the systematic collection and observations or measurements relevant to the research question or hypothesis. Can I jam my board into that curb and grind out an audacious noise? Statistical or qualitative analysis of the data collected to determine whether the results support or refute the hypothesis. Did I do it? Yes, I did. Am I stoked? Yes, I am. Any questions? And after the dust settles on the grand victory of seeing the experiment through, out comes a bloodthirsty carnivore, as evil as the hounds that guard Hades, and as brutal as the dogs of war.
The Hater. I think we can all agree, the Hater does a little bit more than share their interpretation of the results of this experiment and discuss its implications including limitations of the study and suggestions for further research. No. We all know the hater is a bit uglier than that. On this planet Earth, there prowls a creature of grotesque visage and insatiable appetite, known to mortals as the hater. A vile amalgamation of bloodthirsty wolf of willful ignorance and a culture coyote of conformity. The hater embodies the darkest depths of the skater's psyche, a primal force of malevolence and malice. With eyes like hot coals and an empty soul, the hater stalks its prey with a cunning born of the void. The hater's snarl reverberates through the desolate wastelands, a sonata of primal fury and unbridled aggression. For the hater knows no mercy, no remorse. The hater is driven by a voracious hunger that can never be sated. The hater kills not out of necessity, nor out of hunger, but out of sheer delight in the act of killing. Each victim of the hater becomes a canvas upon which it paints its macabre masterpiece of suffering and despair. It revels in the terror of its prey, relishing the taste of fear as if it were the sweetest nectar of the gods. The hater, or Plerus haterus, prowls the shadows, seeking to extinguish the light of others with its venomous words and deceitful schemes. The hater thrives on the misery of others. It seeks not to build, but to tear down, not to uplift, but to destroy. The hater, it is driven by a singular obsession with dominance and control, blinded by its own twisted desires. Agents of chaos, spreading misery and despair wherever they roam. And through their forms, they may differ. Their essence remains unchanged. Let us take a journey into the masturbatorial mind of the modern hater. You see, being a hater can stem from various motives and perspectives, and it's not necessarily purely evil or self-indulgent. Skaters hold themselves and others to an extremely high standard, leading them to be highly critical of any perceived flaws or shortcomings in their art form. This perfectionistic tendency may come from a desire for excellence or a fear of mediocrity. Be gentle to the hater. Harsh criticism of others can sometimes be a reflection of the critic's own insecurities or feelings of inadequacy. By tearing down the work of others, they may seek to bolster their own sense of superiority or worth. To them, I say, just because I shine doesn't mean you don't shine. To the romantic hater, relax. I understand that in some cases, harsh criticism may stem from a strong personal artistic vision or aesthetic preference. The critic may have a specific vision for what constitutes good art and may feel compelled to critique work that deviates from their ideals. And why shouldn't one be able to do so? To the teachers, the carriers of tradition, the helpful hater with their constructive criticism. It can be a valuable tool for skaters seeking to improve their craft. Some haters may adopt a harsh tone in their feedback as a means of pushing skaters to strive for greater excellence or to challenge them to think critically about their work.